That was in 48 and 49. We came down with a house trailer. My sister, family of 4.
When did you go to Wilton Manor?
We didn't move or live in Wilton Manor until 1980. I lived right outside of Wilton Manor in Fort Lauderdale and dated Ann since middle 50s, I would say. I think 1954 is when I met Ann. But I lived in Fort Lauderdale right on the Northwest 3rd Avenue, right north of Wilton Manors.
Tell us about the towers.
Diane Klein came to me with an idea of doing something for Wilton Manor's 50th anniversary. And she thought of the idea of the towers, replicating them or building them as a gift to the city for the 50th anniversary. And so we put it in motion to try to come up with an idea to construct the original duplication of the Wilton Manor towers that were torn down in the late 50s, and we had some pictures, and so that was the idea that we started with.
Tell us about when Wilton Manors, just briefly, how old were you when you moved to Wilton Manors?
I was 7 years old when I moved to Wilton Manors. I went to Oakland Park Elementary because there was not an elementary school in Wilton Manors as of yet. I went there for 2nd and 3rd grade until Wilton Manor Elementary was built, and then we went to Wilton Manor Elementary. These castle gates were at the entrance just to the north of Trailer Haven on Wilton Drive, which we call Wilton Drive now. And as a child, I used to walk underneath these entry gates to school. I'd walk through one going to school, come back the other way on the other side of the street coming back from Oakland Park Elementary School. So as a child, I remember them being there and walking underneath them. And then, of course, later years when it became the A&W, these towers were completely gone on both sides of the street.
What was it like growing up in Wilton Manors?
It was a very quiet, 26th Street was just in existence, and they were building homes on 26th Street, on Northeast 26th Street. I lived right across the street from the library, and that was a whole new development of new homes being built. And while my parents were here during many years vacationing, we would go to different areas and look and search for new home developments, and bands that we had already established coming here during the summers and winter area times for vacation decided to look at this new development here in Wilton Manor. It was close to the beach, close to the school. We knew Wilton Manor Elementary was coming in. It was a walkable distance for raising children, and there was new people coming into the area on a daily basis looking for homes. I don't think there was anything developed in the area other than the homes in that area that were being built. That was being built up as speculation. They were bought before they were sold.
What was the business environment like?
The business environment was very small. We had a grocery store that was on the drive. It was an open market. We used to go there to buy our meats and groceries. There was 2 gas stations, 1 bar, which was right there by the trailer park, that took care of the Wilton Manor area. Things were sparingly and a lot of land to be developed at that time.
You, just briefly, moving to the next thing, you did go to Wilton Manors Elementary?
I was one of the first classes that moved in. I was in the 3rd grade and one of the first classes that moved in to the new Wilton Manor Elementary School.
Who was your favorite teacher back then?
The Radcliffes. Mrs. Radcliffe lived in Lazy Lake for a great number of years, retired there. A name that's well known in the area. She was one of my favorite teachers in the area. We used to go to their home often. I heard you.
Tell us about Wilton Manors Bank.
Wilton Manors Bank was later developed in our later years. I was probably high school at that time when they were in mind of putting their own bank here. That was the first bank in Wilton Manors. years, and that's where everybody in the Wilton Manor area started out doing their banking and financing because it was so close and convenient. As the businesses and commercials started growing, that's where they went. And now I'm sorry to say it won't be there for us much longer.
Tell us about your friends when you were growing up.
At the time that I went to school was when Fort Lauderdale started blooming and blossoming. All of the children went from one school to another. As they were built, we were changed to that school. The Wilton Manor children from Wilton Manor Elementary were shipped off by bus to Naval Air Station. We waited there 2 years until Sunrise Middle School was built. Sunrise Middle School came along, and then we were shifted downtown to the old original Fort Lauderdale High School. So everybody stayed together, but we got to try out all the schools in the time when they were bringing them up, and they were brand new.
Tell us about what it was like raising a family.
Raising a family here, it was great. We had our own softball leagues, little leagues. The children, the boys had baseball and softball, as well as the girls. We had softball teams. We used to practice and play in the back of Wilton Manor Elementary School, where the diamond was at that time for the school. The city was able to use it and was open to the public for different field events. So that was the place for the kids to gather and play games and have their sponsors to be able to enter different leagues and play together. And those children all seemed to stay together from one school to the next.
What was the evolution of the police department like?
When I came in, there was only one policeman, and that was Beanie. He was the motorcycle cop that was able to make the rounds in no time. It was a very quiet town, not a lot of problems. He was able to handle everything at that time, and it's amazing as to see the city grow the way it has. Unbelievable.
How's the evolution of Wilton Drive from then to now?
Basically, it has stayed the same over many, many years, the stores that are there now, but they're all going to be coming down in the near future, and we're going to see a lot of newer development taking place in these old stores. But we did a lot of shopping on those old stores. There was a 5 and dime store. That's where everybody went for their little extra things that they needed, or the kids went to buy their model airplanes or what they were using at the time, or necessities that were needed in school. And when they didn't need that, they were down at Williams Drugstore, which was on the old part of the development, and was the new store, which was at the south end of Wilton Drive. And that's where all the kids would usually gather at the soda fountain for their Sundays and after school events. When they got off the bus, they would all meet there and have their Cokes and cherry Cokes, so to speak, and I don't know, just sort of be able to sit back and have a good time and talk and reminisce.
How has your experience been with the evolution of Wilton?
I've watched it grow. It's a community that cannot grow being it's surrounded by water, so the population just grew. But I started dating Ann in, I think, 1954 or 55, and so obviously I spent a lot of time in Wilton Manor. And I actually worked at back then it was called Stevens Market on Wilton Drive as a bag boy when I was in school. It has stayed a fairly small, sleepy bedroom community to Fort Lauderdale, so there's not a lot of development as far as commercial. It's still mostly a bedroom community to Fort Lauderdale.
In the neighborhood you grew up in, explain what it was like then as compared to now.
Okay, I grew up directly across the street from the Wilton Manor Library, which at the time when we moved in, it was the village city hall, and that's where city hall and all the commissioners would come to have their meetings. And then in the meantime, it was loaned out to the Boy Scouts. There was several troops that came in there and would meet in the area. So it diversity has changed in that particular building somewhat in that corner. Now we have ample room for Little League and softball and recreational facilities that we would never dream that we would have. So the city has grown, and they've been able to take care of the needs thus far for the growing community.
Tell us about the fire department.
The fire department was volunteer, and I don't think you could ever say anything bad about them, because there was never anything publicly wide ever published that they weren't there when they were supposed to. They, for many, many years, trained together and had their own fire department. It was through the city, of course. They took care of the city needs and did so until things got so that the state had to take over, and they farmed it out.
By the way, whenever she's talking about anything, if you want to jump in, please do so.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us about one of the bridges.
Okay, well, there was not a bridge on Northeast 26th Street when I originally came. They were just developing that land on the east side of Wilton Manors. Down the street on Coral Gardens Drive, James Dean was present in his home and raised 4 fine sons. He was what we call sort of the father of the neighborhood. He encouraged everybody in order to get across to the Coral Ridge side, which we know now is Coral Ridge, a bridge to go through there and to bring water into the city of Wilton Manors. And that's what set forth in getting the bridge put across there, that we would have 26th Street bridging over into Fort Lauderdale side. We live on Coral Gardens Drive, which is the last street in Wilton Manors. My children love Wilton Manors. I've got a daughter that is 4 houses down from me, same side of the street, and I've got a son that's 2 houses down from her. We're all on Coral Gardens Drive. So what can you say about families that play together, stay together?
Tell us about the nightlife in Wilton Manors back in the 50s and moving forward.
The nightlife was very quiet. We had a lot to say that everything that had to go on had to be done at the Village Hall. That was the going spot. If there was anything going on with the city or the officials, that's where it would be City Hall. At that time, we did not have any parks per se that you could go picnicking or anything. So it was a very small community with just our one policeman.
How was politics?
Politics was always a hot subject. There was a lot of developing and a lot of problems and a lot of people that had great ideas and great intentions for the city. They, I think, all contended to have gotten along well and got us to where we are today. Good footstone.
If you could, if there's anything in particular that you want to say about the city?
No, can't think of anything except having that little city hall that we had on 26th Street to be here now where we have City Hall. If you look around, you'll see how much growth we have and how many parks we have available, that it takes more and takes more money to take out of pocket in order to please everybody and the community as well. So we've developed as much as we can develop for the area that we're confined in, and everybody's been able to work together. And I think many of the people that are still the hard workers are the older people that have known each other and been together for the last 35 years, working to get the community to where it's at.
You grew up in the surrounding area?
I grew just a couple of blocks away from the south city limits of Wilton Manor.
Did water play a large part of your life growing up?
It did. As a boy, we had a boat, and I learned to, travel every canal in the Broward County or city of Fort Lauderdale. And as you know, Wilton Manor is surrounded by water, so obviously we knew the waterways around Wilton Manor. You could get around it in a small boat. You can't get too big a boat around there, but you can get around completely around the city. And I used to spend a lot of time in Wilton Manor, being it was real close to us.
Well, the school brought a lot together. The families, being we didn't have as big of a community, There was a lot of school functions, and then mothers didn't have to work. We were able to be with our children more and partake and participate in different events. And I think it was the small communities that we had more workers, we were able to do more. Now it's handled a little bit different, where there's not as many people to work on committees and be where the children are to do the things that we did when we were that young. So it's a change of life from that time till now.
What kind of trouble did you get into as a kid?
She never got into any trouble.
I was talking.
What a boring person.
I was saying, did you have any childhood friends or stories you'd like to share?
I can't think of anything offhand right now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we
Okay.
could get some bits and pieces together.